All right, Canada. Oh, the media pundits, the cronies, the corporatists, the fascists, the central planners. Yeah, they're pulling out all stops now. They're not even fucking pretending. I guess their lawyers basically gave up on them and said, hey, listen, you guys are just going to bullshit. I'm tired of fucking telling you how to do it. Now you're on your own. Just wing it. I mean, look around you anyways. It's not like the Canadian people really give a fuck. Most of them are too dumb, indoctrinated, or ignorant to even understand what's going on. So just wing it. Don't help. Don't fucking come to me to help you propagate your bullshit. Just do it. And so they are. This is from Ari Altstetter from Bloomberg News, November 18, 2015. Reported by the Financial Post. Now listen to this. Well, first let me just tell you, I'm not your average Canadian. I pay attention, I'm astute, and I make sure that I prepare for just such shit like this. So yeah, I downloaded, uploaded, have multiple copies so that no matter what, yeah, it's there. It's there. You're not getting rid of it. But that report that was done one time only, when most Canadians weren't paying attention, about how the Canadian banks were massively bailed out. I'll put a link at the bottom of the description of this video just as further evidence to prove to you just how much bullshit, the lies and the propaganda that you're given every fucking day from these like I say, these fascist hacks. You'll see that it was reported that our banks weren't just bailed out, but some of them, three of the 5 or 6 biggest banks in Canada, 3 of them were bailed out to the tune of 1.5 times what their entire bank was worth. In other words, if you had bought stock or every share that was available for that particular bank, we bought it, and then half more was given to the banks to bail them out. I mean, you can listen to the entire video, and like I said, I'll put it in the description so you can see that I'm not bullshitting you, unlike these cocksuckers. The $152 billion bill Canadian banks and consumers, the taxpayers, that's what they mean, the taxpayers, the wage slaves, the serfs of this country, will have to pay for a crisis they avoided. Yeah, we avoided. Right. I mean, you wait till you hear some of the shit they're trying to put forth in this. Canadian banks are starting to get their share of the bill for the global regulations designed to prevent a repeat of the taxpayer-funded bailouts of the 2008 financial crisis. Over the next 5 years, the nation's 6 largest banks will need to convert $152 billion of capital into securities that can be used as a shock absorber during a crisis, according to estimates from Royal Bank of Canada. That pales in comparison with the $1.2 trillion tab. Pales. That's really, it's $152 billion is a lot of money. 1.2 trillion, that's for the. But anyways, the world's biggest lenders face. But the Canadians are unusual in that they never needed rescuing in the first place. Here's your first hint, Canada. Pay attention now. Pay attention. This is extremely important. If you want to truly be informed, pay attention. While RBC predicts much of the capital, which is designed to shift risk to investors from taxpayers, can be met simply by replacing maturing debt with the new types of securities, the market is signaling banks will have to pay up to do it, raising the cost of doing business, possibly across the entirety of the Canadian economy. The Canadian banks are like any other bank. They will now have to figure out how to reprice every service they provide, says James Dutchovich, who oversees $1.8 billion in fixed income assets as chief investment strategist of Century Investments, Inc. in Toronto. It will make credit more expensive, make it more difficult to get, or there'll be less of it around. The Bank of Montreal's cost to raise capital compliant with the new rules doubled when it went to sell $600 million of preferred shares last month, compared to what it paid to issue similar securities in May, according to the National Bank of Canada research. As word got out what BMO paid, the impact was felt at other banks too, and in securities even higher up the capital structure. the market implied costs of similarly compliant bonds, which have a higher claim on a bank's assets than preferred shares, spiked up for every other bank. A Bank of Montreal spokeswoman didn't respond to requests seeking comment about the lender's cost of capital or what the new rules will mean for the price of banking services. Now investors demand 0.81 percentage point or 81 basis point more yield to hold a Royal Bank of Canada bond that's compliant with the new rules than one that isn't, according to data compiled by Bloomberg. That's about the biggest premium for the so-called bail-in debt since the security hit the market in July last year, the data show. Though Canada never had to provide, listen up, though Canada never had to provide the kind of multi-billion-dollar bailouts that other governments did during the financial crisis, the country's banks are still subject to the new rules. I mean, you know right there, that's fucking complete bullshit. Listen to the video that I'm going to put in the description of this video, the link to the video that I'll put in the description called The Secret Bailouts to the Canadian Banks, and you'll see it was reported by CBC News. So there's no way you could fucking say that I'm trying to propagate bullshit or I'm using fucking unfounded sources or bullshit narratives. You will see that even the cocksucking CBC News, even though they only did it one time and they made sure they shuffled it and it was done at a time when nobody was really paying attention, but you will fucking recognize and realize that this is complete and utter bullshit. Though Canada never had to provide the kind of multi-billion-dollar bailouts that other governments did during the financial crisis, the country's banks are still subject to the new rules. The bailouts were criticized for rescuing the investors who'd lent money to the banks as much as the depositors themselves, because laws rank both groups' claims equally. The new global rules require that by 2022, liabilities equal to 18% of the bank's risk-weighted assets must be converted to equity if it faces insolvency. Though Canada's 6 largest banks are not viewed as possible risk to the global financial system and therefore not subject to the rules, the country will probably move in step with its peers, RBC analysis led by Robert Poole wrote in a note last week. The Canadian government will probably release the detail of its own bail-in regime at the beginning of next year, with the banks expected to be fully compliant by 2020, according to Poole. A spokesman for the government didn't respond to requests for information about the bail-in regime. Anyways, I'll put the link to even this article in the bottom too. So both, you'll have the video proof, 100%, undeniable, non-contradictory, no bullshit, no propaganda, no narratives involved, just, you'll see. All right? Facts. Facts, people. Facts will be presented to you. Or, if you don't even believe what's being said, then you know the whole fucking bullshit crap is up in the air. If you don't even believe what the CBC is fucking saying, and when they reported, and that the budgetary office that reported how the banks were all fucking bailed out, if you don't believe that, then don't give any bullshit crap where you believe anything else the fucking government or the propaganda say after that. Because then that means you're just trying to pick and choose the kind of truths that you want to believe. But like I said, let's read this one more time. Though Canada never had to provide the kind of multi-billion-dollar bailouts that other governments did during the financial crisis, the country's banks are still subject to the new rules. So they're saying right there in that sentence, they're trying to say that Canada's banks were not bailed out. When you're going to see with 100% proof and validity to what I'm telling you that yes, they were. Massively. That's why they're called the secret bailouts to the Canadian banks. Because you weren't supposed to know this shit. The propagandists, the opinion makers, the central planners they didn't want you to really understand this. But here in Canada, because CBC is a public broadcaster, and they have to be accountable to the people. Otherwise, what's the fucking point in having them? Is they had to at least report on it one time. And they made sure they did that to comply. But it was in a time when no one was paying attention, and as how emboldened these folks are showing us, well, they did it in a manner so they expect it. Now, it's been long enough time now, nobody will remember what was reported, so let's just put forth this narrative and hope that nobody remembers. Well, let me tell you, I remember. Yeah, I'm like an elephant that way. My memory retention is amazing when it comes to bullshit, propaganda, and lies. I remember that shit for all of eternity. And even if I didn't, which I did anyways, but I not only do I remember in here, but I got the proof right here. This, if you don't want to believe, if you don't want to listen to half of the shit I say, or even the majority of the shit I say in my videos, you want to ignore it, that's fine. But at the very least, even if you hate me, you don't want to hear anything I have to say, do yourself a favor. Do the rest of Canada a favor. Just take that few minutes that it'll take for you to see that I'm telling you the truth. These people are lying to you through their teeth. They seemingly don't even care now about the fact that they are. I would have thought there'd be lawyers say, hey, don't lie like that, man. There's going to be liability issues in the future. But I guess they figure, I don't know. They don't seem to be too worried about it. When you get to be this point when they're taking such risks to lie to the people, to the masses, you know things are bad. Pay attention. Perk up, Canada. Be in the know. Because if you're not, if you remain ignorant when it all comes to light, you're not going to be prepared in any way, shape, or form. It's going to come at you like a semi truck coming to someone's a blind man walk across the street. You're not even going to know what the fuck hit you. BAM! Is all you're going to feel, or all you're going to see or experience. Don't you want to be prepared? I know I sure do. Because it isn't just me that's going to be affected. It's my kids, my grandkids. It's the rest of Canada. It's the rest of society. It's the rest of the world, for the most part, that's affected by this shit. It's time you stop using fear, hatred, and ignorance as the guiding stones for your life. Truth, facts, and non-contradictory evidence has to trump all that other bullshit. Do what needs to be done, Canada. I hope that you will. Skinny Libertarian, and I love liberty.